Hello. I was running a little bit late today, so I'm a little bit discombobulated, but here we are. My timer stopped and then started again. And today we're going to be talking about hard light. So, in photography, light is everything. And light has different properties and qualities, and we're going to talk about that today. What is hard light? And what do you do to photograph it? How do you photograph it in a way that works in your for your subject? And then we'll talk about some editing because hard light comes with its own inherent problems. So let me just say hello to a few people. We got Marsha, Nigel, some great people we see lots. Welcome, Marsha in Florida. Nigel's in the Barbados. We've got Kevin in the house. He's in Edmonton, where we are. Jim in Ottawa. Janet is in BC and Coquitlam. Welcome, Vivian. Nice to see you. And CLM, not sure who that is, but from Caledon, Ontario. Do we have you on the map, Kevin? Yes, I'm sure we do. Neo is in the house. David, awesome. Welcome. Boris, more Edmonton folks. He's getting specific with his neighborhood now. Welcome, everyone. As I said, we're going to talk about hard light today. How's my sync? I'm looking a little out of sync to me, but can you guys tell me how is my mic sync? Is my lips matching the words that are coming out? And how's the sound? I've got the sound set up. Belgrade. I don't know if we have that one on the map, Rob. You might want to look up that. Catherine. Hi, Catherine. So sync. How's my sync? Am I in, out? What's happening there? I'm just waiting for you guys to catch up with me on the broadcast. And then I'm going to switch over. I have a few slides that I'm going to show you first. And then I'm going to get into Lightroom and show some editing. Catherine says it looks good. Okay, so I'm just going to go with it. And we're going to switch down to my slides. Now I'm not sure if I'm going to go full screen on this one or not. Let me just see here. I'm not even sure how to make that happen. How do we go full screen? I don't even know how to go full screen, apparently. So, let me just... Okay, apparently I cannot go full screen. I'm not sure how to do that. So, I'm just going to move this over here. Move it to the front. Zoom. Play. Yeah, see, I don't know how to get it to go full screen here. Maybe just an F? We'll just go like that. There we go. Okay. We're full screen. So as I said, I want to just do... I'm going to take my head off of here for the moment because... I just want to make sure you can see everything on the slides. So I'm just going to turn myself off. So you're not going to see me while the slides are happening. But I just want to make sure you see all the slides. Okay, so this is what we're going to be talking about today. So as I mentioned, light has different properties. Okay, so there's a quality of light, which is the hard versus soft light. And I'll define that and show you some examples. Color of light, okay, so that is like your white balance, if you think of that. And direction of light, where is it coming from? Okay, so where's the light source? Okay, some general notes. Light is what creates the mood and the feeling in the image, and shadows are good. Okay, so quality of light, hard light produces a lot of shadows. Okay, so don't be afraid of that, is what we're going to get from this lesson today. Okay, is there such thing as bad light? And my answer to that is yes and no. Okay, bad light is light that does not flatter the subject and help it stand out. Okay, so it's not about hard light is bad in all situations. There are situations where it works. Okay, so I'll show you some kinds of subjects that work well with hard lighting. Okay, so first of all, let's define it. Okay, so what is hard versus soft light? What is quality of light? You may have heard that term before, you may have not. So tell me in the chat, have you heard that term before? Quality of light, and do you know what hard light is? Okay, so I'd like to know in the chat, do you know what quality of light and hard light is? Okay, so quality of light, right? We have hard light, which is defined by a very small light source. Okay, it comes from a very small light source. Hard light is very high contrast. It's very intense. You get lots of drama, and it also adds to texture. So if you have a subject that is textured, you want hard lighting. A soft light on the opposite end is all of the things that hard light is not. So it's low contrast, it's almost flat, it's less dramatic, and it reduces or it doesn't enhance the texture. Okay, so if you want texture to show, you might want hard light. Okay, so this is what it looks like. So hard light, you'll see a defined shadow as well. Okay, that's another sign that you have hard light, is a well-defined shadow. Look at the shadow of the tennis ball here on the racket. Okay, you can actually see a circular shadow, versus soft light where there's almost no shadows. Okay, so think overcast day. On the left, we have bright sun hitting the tennis ball, right? Half is in light, so it's also coming from the side. And then on the other side, we have a very low contrast, flat lit ball that doesn't even look like it has dimension, right? Well, that has to do with direction as well, but there's no shadows. Okay, so the biggest thing is, where are the shadows and how do they look? Okay, so if they're well defined, sharp, as in you can see an outline, it's hard lighting. Okay, so let's look at some examples in comparison. Here's a very extreme example. Okay, so on the left, you could see lots of shadows and you can draw a line around them. Okay, so that's how I think about hard light. If you could draw a line around the shadow, meaning it's that well defined, it's hard light. Okay, you can clearly see that it's bright sunlight. In the one on the right, we got a fog situation, right? It's about the softest light you can imagine. But look at how shadowless it is, okay? So these are extreme examples, okay? So I want you to get the concept of hard light. Another extreme example, okay? So hard light produces shadows that are defined. Look at the shadows of the camels on this sand, okay? Without hard light, that image is not the same, okay? It does not have the same impact without those shadows. We need those shadows, okay? Soft light, okay? Now there's not a lack of shadows in this picture of this little Japanese pagoda or whatever it's called. It was at a temple. There is shadows, but they're not defined the same way. If you look here, okay, under the edge of this little structure, there is a shadow. Okay, so the light's coming from the top. You can see shadows. You see there's parts that are lighter and parts that are darker. Okay, but it's not outlineable. Okay, that's the difference. Okay, now we're talking about texture. Okay, so look at the texture of the pineapple with hard light, okay, versus the flowers, soft light. Right, now let's talk about, again, the concept of good light. Okay, it's more, change that word from is the lighting good to is it appropriate, right? Look at the pineapple. It has spines and it's pointy, right? So hard light kind of matches with that. Hard light feels pointy, right? Spiny, versus the cherry blossoms that are literally soft, okay? So soft light is more appropriate in this case for this image for the flowers. Okay, same subject, different lighting, different quality of light. Okay, so I want to point out that they're both backlit in this situation. The light is coming from behind the monkeys, outlining them, but look at the difference between the hard light and the soft light. Okay, so the soft light is lower contrast, another key. The one on the left, you see the rocks are really bright, okay, and the shadows are really dark. Okay, so that's another key of indicator that it's hard light, is its higher contrast. Okay, again, look at the defined shadow of the streetcar on the left. Okay, you can outline and draw a line around it. Okay, When it's hard light, okay, you'll also get typically blue skies if you're photographing outside, because the sun is direct, right? The sun is not impeded by any clouds, versus the one of the Taj Mahal where it is soft and hazy, okay? So there are shadows, but they are less defined. It's softer, okay? Literally feels softer, okay? So let's talk about direction of light a little bit, okay? Where is the light coming from is important. So we have front light, okay, which is direct from the camera angle. It's flat and shapeless and looks like the tennis ball that we saw earlier. Okay, so that is coming from the camera direct. So think about your direct, your on-camera flash, okay? So on-camera flash is front light, okay? If the sun is behind you when you're photographing, that's front light. Light from the side emphasizes texture and adds dimension to your subject, like the tennis ball we saw with the hard light earlier. Okay? Backlight can be dramatic as well, and I showed you a couple examples with the monkeys, okay? But it can pose an exposure challenge, right, as to how to get the exposure correct. Okay, now we see backlight where the shadow is in front of the tennis ball. With backlight, you get this little sort of outline of light around the subject. Can you see the part of the tennis ball on the top that is bright? Okay, so you get like in portraiture, it's called a hair light. So the tennis ball has a hair light. Imagine somebody's hair, is lit up all the way around. Okay, so that's a backlight situation. Okay, so let's take a look at side lighting. When you're photographing things that have dimension, like a building, right, side lighting is actually what you want to seek out. You want one side of the building to be lit and one side to be in shadow, because then you have shape and dimension. Look at the one on the left. You can see the shape of the building based on the light and the shadow. Okay, without that, if it's flat, the building looks flat. It doesn't look like it has shape. The one on the right, look at the tones of the top of that roof. You see the light going from left to right to left, and the shadow is on the left, right? So it's falling off into shadow, but it gives you the shape. You really understand the shape of that building, right? Right? Side lighting as well with texture. Look at the texture on the mountains in this one because of the side light. Okay, so when you're photographing things like mountains and landscapes, you absolutely need side light to bring out that texture, right, and give you the feeling of that rockiness of the mountains. Right? Same thing with the old car on the right. The light is coming from the side, and we're getting all the texture down the side of that old car. Okay, Cuba. Buildings again, okay? So architecture, look at the buildings. Lit on one side, dark on the other, okay? Same thing goes with the cemetery, okay? Light from the side, producing the texture, okay? Some examples of backlighting. Remember I told you it looks like sort of a outline around the subject? Look at the cactuses, right? It's outlining their shape with light, okay? Subjects that look good in backlight are anything that is semi-transparent, like these drinks, okay? Foliage, flowers, things like that, okay? Backlighting also produces a strong shadow, right, when you have hard light, okay? So in these images, I use the shadows in the composition, okay? Which leads me to, again, mention the shadows, okay? So shadows are important. Don't try to get rid of them. A lot of people I find in their editing go too far and they remove the shadows, okay? But if you remove the shadows in these images, there's no picture, okay? So the shadows are really an integral part of these images. But also, look at how well defined the shadows are. Can you draw a line around them? Yes. That means it's hard light, okay? Without shadows, these images have no picture, okay? Literally, the shadows and the light are the subject, okay? Look at here. Once again, backlighting and shadows, okay? Very dramatic, okay? We're outlining the ballerina, shadow on the floor. The shadow is actually more of the subject than she is, okay? Some subjects that work well in hard light, okay? Any guesses based on what we've talked about already You've seen a few examples. So what do you think works well with hard light? Okay, so if you are traveling, and the reason I mention these things is if you are traveling and you're in a situation where, you have no option but to be out in midday lighting, which is typically hard light if it's clear sunny day like these images, right? So look for subjects that work well. Okay, so architecture does really well with hard lighting, as I mentioned before, because it helps show the dimension of the buildings. Okay, but then you also need to make sure it's coming from the side. Okay, so where you position yourself to photograph that building is important. Okay, make sure you're on a side where you see, or a corner where you see part is in light and part is in shadow. Okay, look at this building here on the right. The light is coming from the right, the left side is in shadow. Okay, and the high contrast adds to that sort of edginess of the graffitied building, right? Side light on this one is literally lighting up this lion. Okay, again, side lighting and high contrast hard lighting. Okay, so we have shape in these buildings because of the side lighting, right? And the hard light adds to the contrast. Okay, so it gives us more shape and dimension. Okay, urban scenes again work really well. Okay, look at the shadows on the ground. Again, literally the subject. Okay. Urban scenes with buildings, cities, cityscapes, okay, city shots. I'm sure we've all seen, great urban shots where the clouds are moving fast and the building is sharp, okay? Typically, again, hard lighting. Look at the hard light here. These are mixed scenes. So we've got the scene on the left has partial soft light, okay? And then where the hard light shows up, the sun is coming through, those buildings are really highlighted, okay? Same with the one on the right. We look at the graffiti building because it's highlighted. Sorry, I'm got the sniffles. Okay. Kevin's got it right. Buildings is one for sure, right? Texture. Anything that has a lot of texture is going to be enhanced with hard light if you get the direction of light correct. Look at the old front of the old stove. Okay, it's iron, it's all rusted. In the side light, you can see the shadows coming down. Look if you're not sure where the direction of light is, look at the direction of the shadow. Okay, in this one here, the shadow is falling down this way. That means the light is up here. Okay, in this one, the shadows are falling this way, so the light is up here. And you can literally, it's literally drawing a line. Okay, there's something producing that shadow. Okay, texture. Okay, remember I mentioned that it brings out texture. Look at the planter box on the right. Right, the brick wall where the light is hitting it, where the bright light, the hard light is hitting it. Look at the texture compared to the bits in the shadow. Okay, even if I had brightened the shadow parts, it's not gonna have as much texture. And then you have a subject like this building in India on the left that is full of texture, right? So doing little close-ups of things like this works well when you have hard lighting. Night photos as well, right? The one on the left is literally lit with my car headlights, okay? Super hard light. And that's the moon in the background, okay? The one on the left was lit with a small flash off to the side, okay? That's me doing the lighting, but look at how much drama it adds. Again, night photos and black and white, okay? So black and white works really well with hard light, okay? The one on the left was light painted with a flashlight, okay? And the one on the right is just a street light. But look at where the shadows are, okay? Again, they're falling down this way, okay? So there's a street light up to the left, and I waited for the man to get into the light, okay? So as he walked, he was in the darkness, and then as soon as he hit the bright spot, that's when I took the photo, okay? So I wanted him illuminated so that he showed up. Oh, sorry, I got sniffles. All right, so I'm going to switch over here. So any questions about that? Where's my thing here? I gotta switch over. Oh, I just need to end my slideshow. That's what I need to do. There we go. Okay, so now we're going to switch over to Lightroom. And give me a second here. Okay, so what did you learn from that? Have you learned something already? Tell me what you've learned about hard lighting. Okay, give me 1 second here. I literally have to blow my nose. So, Rob, ask them a question in the chat, and I'm going to wait for you guys to tell me what you learned so far, because David said you didn't know the difference. So, does that help explain it, David? Okay, let me come back on camera here. There we go. All right, where is my... There we go. Okay. All right, so now I've got a bunch of different images, and a lot of these incorporate the things that I talked about, like high contrast, bright sun, texture. Okay, so I want to talk about some of the inherent challenges of editing these kinds of images. Okay, because they're high contrast. Okay, they're pushing the boundaries often of what is possible to edit inside your software. Okay, so I want to kind of pick a few here that are going to be something that you encounter when you're photographing. Okay, so I'm actually going to start with this one, and I'm going to reset it because this has been edited. Okay, that's the original. Okay, and I'm going to reset it. I've edited this one a long time ago because this is from our RV trip that we did in 2010, 2009, 2010. Let's see. Catherine says she didn't know about side lighting and texture. Awesome. Very funny, Rob. Rob is all about the turtles all the time. Okay, so when we're editing, when we're dealing with hard light like this, it's very high contrast. Okay, so when we look at the histogram, you see there's a huge spike on the left because of the exposure. It's a little bit bright, but not bad. Because if I turn on my clipping warnings, it's not actually clipping. Okay, so this is actually a perfect exposure. Okay, so this is a perfect example of what they call exposed to the right, where the histogram is pushed to the right, but not off the graph. Neil says, light from the side, high, I'm guessing that means creates dark backgrounds against bright sky, backlit items with shadow, etc. David says, yes. Awesome. Okay. So that's the goal. I mean, as long as you learn one thing. So I'm going to show some editing in Lightroom, and then I'll pick a few to take over to Luminar. Okay. One of the beautiful things that we have in Lightroom Classic now is, and all these images have been shot raw. Okay. Is this adaptive color. It's only available on a raw file. Okay. So adaptive profiles attempt to balance out things in your image. Okay. So when I choose it, look at that. Okay. Amazing. This is actually quite amazing, because to get this image to look like it looked before, I had to do quite a lot of editing, right? And now, just from choosing the profile, adaptive color, it's done a lot of the work for me. Look at how balanced the histogram is, okay? So I don't have a lot to do other than decide how much contrast and stuff I want. Okay, so I'm going to give it a little bit of clarity because of those rocks will benefit. And if I do dehaze, let's see what happens here. Okay, so it's going to pick up the sky and improve the sky and texture down here. So this is actually brilliant. The only other thing that I might do here is just kind of crop out the sand. I want these rocks to be the foreground, and let's just kind of have them at the bottom, right? But this adaptive profile has basically done the work of controlling the exposure and the contrast for me, right? And of course, I still have the ability to adjust things like white balance and add a vignette and things like that. Okay, so which I will do. But look at, I've not used hardly any sliders here, and we've taken it from that to that. So huge lesson here is that if you make sure you're shooting raw, and try the adaptive color profile in Lightroom before you do anything else, because a lot of times it's brilliant, right? Not always, right? You can also increase or decrease the amount that it's applying. So if I lower it, I'll get that contrast back. If I increase it, right, it's going even farther, okay? I don't mind it how it was, okay? But look at how simple that was. I haven't done any masking. I haven't done anything else. And I've gone from I'm going to show you back the one I had before. Okay, so this is my original edit, right? Look at how many things I had applied. I had a vignette, a lens corrections, which I could do, right? A tone curve. I had a mask applied, probably on the sky and some other things. Yeah, so 3 masks applied. So a lot more work here than just applying the adaptive profile. And I actually think I like this edit better, right? So the thing you want to do when you are working with hard light is to control the contrast and make sure you have detail, okay? So I've done that here. Like, look at the original histogram was all bunched up to the right. Now look at it, okay? That's a raw file. Oh, sorry, my nose is just running today. I don't know why. I'm going to get myself off the screen because my nose is ridiculous. Okay. Let's move on to another image. Questions? Kevin says, oops. Gillian says, I take a photo where the subject is a light source. Is that hard light? Well, it depends on the light source. If it is a like a street light or something, yes. It has to do with light, and I actually didn't define that in the slides, which I'm surprised. So hard light is created by a small light source relative, the size of the light source relative to the subject controls quality of light. Okay, so when you're dealing with a small light source, like let's look at this example here. Okay, the sun, right? The sun is literally a small light source. However, it's a big light source, right? The sun is giant, but it's so far away that for us it looks very small. So proportionally and perspective wise, it's small. So examples of hard light are, my sync is off. Well, my head's not on the screen right now, Kevin. So that's why my nose is the issue today. So hard light sources are anything that is small. Your on-camera flash, right? If it's not modified in any way, like your flash, if it's not bounced, if it's direct, any flash that's small, a flashlight, a street light, the sun, okay? Those are all small light sources, okay? A large light source, which produces soft light, is basically an overcast sky, a big soft box, or your flash bounced off a ceiling or a wall, okay? Hundreds of LEDs. I'd have to see it to know. Hundreds of LEDs. I'm not sure. I'd have to see it. I mean, if it's a big bank of light, it could actually be producing soft light, okay? But if the light source itself is large, then it's probably becoming a soft light, okay? It's more about the light that's falling on the subject, okay? Like in this example here, Gillian, and you can go back and watch the slides again, right? So the sun is just out of the frame here, but look at the light that it's producing. It's got this shadow of the streetcar, right? And in front, okay? So this is hard light situation, okay? So you don't even have to have the light source in the picture to have hard light, okay? All right, let me look at another one where, let's just say a typical like street scene, for example, like this. Okay, so I'm out and about walking around in Tokyo, and I see these, these girls in the kimonos, and I want to take their photo. But of course, the sun is bright, so you can see that it's hard light. Okay, and it's not the best situation to photograph these ladies in. Okay, so what can we do to try and deal with it? Well, let's jump directly to, again, our adaptive color profile, okay, and see what it does. It's not bad, okay. I find it's a little bit yellow, maybe. Okay, that's not bad. It reduces the contrast, okay, but let's see what happens if I choose a camera profile, okay, and I don't have this ability, okay. So to do this manually, right, we need to lower the contrast. So there's a couple of different ways you can do that, right? We can lower the highlights. And I want to show you what not to do when you have such lighting situation like this as well, right? Lowering the highlights and pumping the shadows up, okay, to try and remove all the shadows, okay? This produces a look that I recommend, against, okay? It's bordering on what I call neon puke, because if I then increase the clarity and the saturation, now we have something that makes me want to vomit, right? So don't do things like this, right? So I'm going to reset that. Okay, so it was photographed with the Pro Via. This is a Fuji image, okay, a Fuji RAW. I'm going to crop it a little bit and make sure that it's straight as well. Okay, so straighten that. I want to get rid of this guy over here, so I'm just going to crop in a little bit. Get rid of that other cone. So we just have the ladies. Okay, so dealing with the contrast, you want to minimize it a little bit, but not remove the shadows. They're lit up with the sun coming from the side. Look where the shadows are. Okay, hard light. You can draw a line around it. And the background behind them is dark. So it's actually not bad, okay? It lights them up in a way that they really stand out. But I just want to make sure that I have detail. So I can turn on my clipping warnings, right? I can also use my shift double click trick in Lightroom. So when you hold your mouse over the word whites, hold your shift key and then double click, right, on whites and blacks, it sets what's called the endpoints. Notice in this case, it lowered the white slider, right? So it minimized any brightness in the white area, okay? Now I feel like it's just a little bit dull, right? But look at the difference, okay? So they're not really overexposed here. This image is not overexposed, and that's another problem that comes up. People think that something they could do with the exposure would fix this issue, and you cannot. Okay, so when you have an image like this that's super high contrast, right, just make sure that the highlights aren't overexposed, and that's as good as your exposure is going to get. Okay, I still feel like I've gone a little too far on the over contrast. Okay. And they feel just a little bit yellow. There we go. Okay, so I want to minimize the contrast and make sure that I'm not clipping, but I don't want to get rid of it. Okay, so don't go overboard. You can also do this with the tone curve. So I'm going to undo this, okay, and show you how to do it with the curve. Okay, so again, I'm going to put my clipping warnings on so you can see just part of her kimono is clipping a little bit. So to reduce contrast, usually you want to make an S curve, which adds contrast. Okay, so we actually want to go the opposite direction. So I'm going to lower the highlights. Okay, and in this case, what the slider did where I lowered the whites, look what happened. Watch her kimono. As I lower the whites, okay, her kimono comes in line, no clipping, okay? If I lift the shadows this way, okay, now I've basically gotten the same effect that I got with the sliders with the curve tool. Notice it's an inverted S, okay? So I could take it a little farther, right? See how the steeper inverted S gets, the flatter it gets. Okay, now we're bordering on sort of some weird tones happening in here, but I want to show you what happens when we invert the curve. Okay, so the more you go steeper, the lower the contrast. Okay, so there, it's just doing the same thing, okay, as the other sliders did. Okay, so there's a couple of different ways that you can lower the contrast. Okay. And then I would just do a little edge vignette on this one and be done with it. Okay, so notice I didn't do any of the sliders. It was all done with curves, right? So you don't want to completely eliminate the shadows, okay? You want to control it, okay, but not eliminate, okay? Mine a crazy nose today. Okay, let's see. I want to show you a series of images that I took of when we were standing at the subway. Okay. So I saw this girl. I've obviously edited this one. This was not a black and white. But I saw this girl standing at the platform in Tokyo, I think, and I just loved the shadow. So again, this does not happen without hard light, okay? And my tour leader partner Daniel, everybody basically saw this. We were all together as a group, standing in line to get on the subway. I just happened to be in the best position to take the shot, so he was mad because I got the picture and he didn't. Okay, so this is what I saw, right? And I like this one, and I made this one into black and white to take advantage of the contrast. Okay, so without the high contrast and the hard light, this isn't a picture, right? But this is a series of images that I took. So I took a few, right, focusing on her shadow, and she moved her feet a little bit, okay, and then I got this. Okay, so I backed up a little bit, went wider, and I saw her reflection in the train as the train arrived into the door. Okay, so this was sort of my ultimate image that I got here as well. Same thing, without the hard light, this doesn't happen. Okay, this is her purse, but it literally looks like a bouquet of flowers. Okay, and then of course we get on the train. Okay, so I took a series of images, and let me see what this one is in terms of editing. Okay, same thing. So all I did here was control the contrast a little bit. Okay. Oh, I think that could be actually edited better. Okay, this is a little bright for me, so I could probably turn this down a little bit. This area is really bright. Okay, so I'm actually going to make a duplicate of this one, and I'll edit this one from scratch for you. Okay, so virtual copy. There we go. I'm going to reset it. So this is what it looked like. So I wanted to make sure I got rid of this bright spot or minimize it. Okay, so I want to tone it down, and I wanted to bring out her reflection while maintaining contrast here. Okay, so I could try the adaptive color, but I don't think it's going to give me what I want. No, it doesn't. It doesn't know what I want, so it's just controlling the contrast in a way that I'm not happy with. So I'm going to stick with either Astia or Provia, which is what I started with. I think that's kind of what I usually shoot in, is Provia. I like Astia. Okay, and to control the contrast, again, if I look at my clipping warnings, we've got some clipping here, so I can bring the highlights down to control that. Okay, I'm going to brighten it a little bit overall because I really want to have a little bit of detail in her. Okay, and then I really just need to control this area here. Okay, I like to add black. Okay, so when you click on the Alt Option key and click the slider, okay, it'll show you what's clipping when you move the slider. Okay, so I actually want a little bit of black clipping, but I don't want white clipping. Okay, so if I go up here again, it starts to clip that sidewalk or this thing here. Okay, the part of the street. Sidewalk, I don't know what it is. Okay, I'm going to give it a little bit of clarity, but again, if I go too far, it enhances the edge contrast, right? So clarity is about edge contrast. And in an image like this, where we already have a well-defined edge, we don't need a lot more of that, okay? If anything, I could do more texture, right? But I'll do it probably as a local adjustment on her. I don't want the texture on the ground. So we still need to control this part here. So this one I would do with a mask, right? And I'm going to use a linear gradient. I could also try, actually, we could try landscape, okay, and see what it picks up for elements, because it should have exactly artificial ground. Okay, so this is perfect. Okay, and if you're using Luminar, it has artificial ground or man-made ground as well. Okay, so it's not picking up her, which is perfect. So I'm going to do artificial ground, and then I'm going to bring those highlights down, right? I don't want to do this because I don't want to have too much, texture here. I can also lower the texture, right? So I want to take the eye away from the ground and into this whole scenario of the shadow with her and her reflection, okay? So I don't want the ground to grab attention, so I'll just lower the texture a little bit. Okay, so things which have things which are sharp and have a lot of texture will grab your attention. Okay, notice how when I lower the texture, which is emphasized by that hard light, okay, it takes the eye away from this area. Okay, so this is working really well. I'm probably going to do one more mask, and in this one I'm just going to do a linear gradient because it's extra bright on this kind of edge here, and I'm just going to darken that. Right, I feel like it's also yellow, right? There we go. Okay, so see the difference here with the mask? So local adjustments help to control this bright area. Okay, so masking. So now our eye really goes to the shadow, the outline of the girl, because she's backlit, and her reflection, which was like just serendipitous that I got the reflection, right? I can boost the shadows a little bit, but again, I don't want to end up with something like that, right? Because the shadow is what attracted me to this scene in the first place, okay? So that's kind of the edit that I came up with. I think that edit's better than what I did before. I think this edit is better. Oh, I see what also notice this is not blue anymore, okay? So what I did was I probably went in here, or I could have done it in the mask. So if I want to just affect the ground with this mask, we have this new point color in Lightroom where I can just click on this blue here and I can darken it and lower the saturation. So I can literally just make it sort of colorless, right? I could get rid of the pink if I wanted to as well, but I don't mind the pink as much as the blue. But if I want to darken the pink, right, I can just select this color, right? See how that actually helps as well, okay? Like so. And we could do a third one on, notice it didn't pick up this pink, okay, because they're different. See how that enhances, makes her stand out more, okay? So I'm just darkening that background, okay? So this is what's happening with the masks, okay? And all I did was I went back to this one with the artificial ground selected, rename it, and I just added some points, okay? So I already had these options, the highlights and the exposure pulled down, and I just added some point color adjustments to get that, okay? I could also brighten her dress, right? I could do that actually without, look at that, okay? So it brightens, and see, it's getting the ground. So you want to be careful doing stuff like this as a global adjustment because it's brightening the ground, and I just want to adjust her. So if I want to do that, I'll just do, let's see what it picks up as a subject. Okay, so it does pick her up as the subject, which is great. And now I have to do point color again because we don't have the HSL sliders, but we do have point color. And I can just brighten her a little bit. There we go. Right, so before, right, and after. So I've actually added contrast, but I'm working with the contrast that's there, right? I'm noticing that her legs are darker as well. So I'm not sure if it's picking her up in this mask here. Oh, where is her legs getting darkened? Her legs are getting darkened somewhere. Okay, so while I've got the subject selected here, I'm just going to brighten her. I want her legs to be white, so I'm going to select that and brighten her stockings a little bit. There we go. Okay, so they were looking a little blue. Okay, so before and after. So really what I wanted to do here was just control this area. I don't want to remove the contrast. I'm going with the contrast because of the hard light that attracted me to the subject in the first place, right? So you work with it, don't eliminate it, right? So this is a perfect example of a subject that works really well. Again, my nose is running. I apologize. A subject that works really well with hard lighting. Okay, let's get back here. Let's see what you guys are having to say. Yes, shadow and reflection. Dan was mad because I got the picture. Any questions? Okay, the next one I want to do, I'm going to give you guys a choice of image. Okay, so what is a typical kind of scenario that you might encounter? I'm going to give you a couple of examples here. I'm actually going to reset this one. So I made this one black and white and did some super high contrast on this one. Let's see. Okay, so here, let's just see what you want me to edit. I'm going to let you guys have a vote here. This guy's kind of interesting. The monkeys. Or the cactus. The cactus is kind of interesting as well. Okay. Let's do... Which one would you like me to edit? So we've got a couple of cactuses. We'll call it 1, 2, 3, 4. Top to bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4. Or you can just describe it. So which one would you like me to edit? Rob, do you have any preferences on this one? These are all hard light. Okay, can you tell the hard lighting? What's the direction of light? Take a look at the direction of light in these. Yes. The wall here I actually turned into black and white, so I could do that one in black and white if you like. I could do any of these in black and white if you like. We could do one in color and one in black and white. So which one would you like me to edit next? 30 seconds to vote. Okay. Sorry, I gotta pause again because my stupid nose. So number one, Rob. So number one for you, number one for Boris. And I could do that one in black and white as well, for Janet. Any other votes? We got 2 votes for number one. Another vote for number one. Number 3. Oh, the dragon. He's interesting, isn't he? Number 4. Well, let's do an experiment. Let's just take all 4 of these. I'm going to leave them selected. And let's work on this one. Okay, this one got the most votes. Number 4 came in a close second, which is the other cactus. Okay. We need some thumbs up, Rob says. So if you're watching and you have not given the video a thumbs up yet, please do that. Okay, so what I want to do is exactly what we did before. So this is quite an old file. It's a CR2 file. I shot this in 2009, actually, but it's a raw file. Okay, so I can do I can go back on camera here. I can do the adaptive profile again. Okay. Okay, notice it added contrast. Okay. Did that surprise you? It added contrast. Okay. I kind of like it. Okay, so a couple of things. I want to correct the tilt here because it looks like it's crooked. Yeah, that looks actually better. Let's go about there. There we go. Okay, so it feels crooked. Let's try that. That's better. Okay, so in this one, we've got some cactus in the foreground that's sharp and lots of dust. My Canon was notorious for dust. Okay, so finally we have the dust removal in Lightroom. It took them forever to catch up to Luminar. And it didn't get all of the dust, so we'll just help it. Okay, there we go. And always it wants me to update the adaptive profile. Right, now I want to do this one with my upside down trick. Can you please share a link to the video with the upside down trick, Rob? So when we look at an image upside down, it helps us to determine where the eye is going to be drawn. right? Because as a photographer, we know what we photograph, we know what we want to have people look at, right? But that's not necessarily where their eye is going to go. So when we look at it upside down, it helps us to figure out where the viewer's eye is going to go. And for me right now, it kind of goes all over the place, okay? Because your eye is drawn to areas of high contrast, which is everywhere, sharpness, right? Mostly the cactus and all this stuff in the foreground is sharp, okay? So it's drawn over here as well, which we don't necessarily want. Areas of intense color. So we've got the cactus, but then also the red, okay? So our eye is pulled between these two. So there's lots of competing things, and areas of brightness, which is again the cactus. So we are leaning to the cactus, but we want to help it. We want to help it. There we go. We want to help it by directing the eye. Okay, so our editing efforts are going to be to try and direct the eye to these cacti, and not all these bushes and things. Okay, so again, I'm going to do my shift double click on the whites and the blacks. We're going to add a little bit of clarity, and then I'm just going to control the highlights a little bit. Again, I'm not doing this. Okay, we don't want to get rid of shadows. We just control it a little bit. And then we get into local edits. So local edits are really important when you have an image like this. I'm going to see what it comes up with when I choose subject. What does it think is the subject here? That cactus. Well, that's not it. So I'm going to undo that because that's not what we want. So instead, I might just do a radial gradient because there's kind of an oval here, right? So I'm just going to do a radial gradient around this set of cactus, this little bush here, right? So I actually want to bring attention to this area, okay? Okay, so this is our mask, but I'm going to do it opposite. So I'm going to invert it because I want to affect everything else outside of this cactus, okay? I'll make it a little bigger. Okay, so if you want to make it bigger and you can't, it's off the screen, just do make your image smaller. Okay, so I'm doing command minus command or control on the Windows. Okay, so then I can actually have it go off the screen, right? I have more control this way. Okay, and then you can just hold the space bar and then click, and it'll go back to sort of fit window. Okay, so I shrunk it so that I could move it around a little bit more. Okay, now I want to bring the highlights down in the background. Look what that does to the sky. It does a great job, but I want to darken everything. Okay, so I'm really sort of lowering the brightness level of everything. And now I'm thinking I might want to make this smaller. There we go. There we go. So I want to minimize this, okay? But besides controlling the brightness, I'm also going to lower the texture a little bit. Okay, so look at the difference. Okay, high texture, your eye goes to all of this busyness over here. Okay, versus lowering the texture. Okay, I could lower the clarity a tiny bit as well. Okay, so it's minimizing all these highlights on these busy bushes over here. Okay, see that? So it's really focusing our attention on this front cactus. So all of the rest of this stuff becomes supporting cast members, if you will, in this scene. Okay, so the Sedona, yes, it is Sedona in the background. All this stuff becomes a support for the cactus in the foreground. Okay, now that I've done that, okay, so I can rename this. I'm just going to call it background. Right, I can actually then duplicate and invert it, which will then give me the cactus. Okay, so now I have exactly the opposite, which is what I want, and I'm going to make it even smaller so I get just the cactus, right? And I'm going to do the opposite. I'm going to increase the clarity and the texture, okay? And I might even bring the highlights down just a bit more, okay? I'm going to check my black. So it's a dance, okay? I'm holding Alt down again, okay? So I want black because black gives me, maintains the contrast. I don't want to eliminate contrast Okay, I just want to control it. Okay, so it's not off the graph. That looks pretty good. Okay, now I'm going to do a virtual copy and let's see what this looks like in black and white. I actually think it would look really cool because of the high contrast. Okay, it's not bad, okay, but it's a little flat. Okay, so when you convert to black and white, so to go to Janet's question, you really want to, so this is what it does as an auto mix here. You really want to control your tones. So I want to bring the green out, which is that cactus. Look at that, okay? So it's darkening the reds, okay, which is good. I'm going to darken the blue, which is the sky. And now we're really bringing this cactus out, okay? Oh, yellow actually helps too. Look at that. But overall, it feels a little bit flat. So coming back to either basic or tone curve, okay? I can bring my tone curve up. Let's just check for clippings. Okay, so ever so slightly, there's a little bit of clipping right here on the cactus, right? And I want the black clipping, so I'm just going to scale it black a little bit. Okay, that looks good. Okay, and again, we can increase here. But I want sort of the mid-tone contrast, okay? So I want to increase the mid-tones potentially in the background, right? So I can actually come back to my background here, and maybe I don't want to eliminate so much of the highlights, right? I'm not as crazy about it in black and white as I thought, right? I like the color. Oops. Where did the color version go? There it is. Okay, so I like the color version of this one. If we want to compare them, let's look at them side by side, right? I definitely think the color version, right? And controlling this one is extra challenging because when you talk about things that are going to stand out in your image, warm colors like orange and yellow stand out. So the background is always going to be, you have to tone it down because of the orange, right? And cool colors tend to recede. So the green, you really have to pull that out in the cactus. But I think that I've done a good job here of controlling where the eye is going to look, right? See that? So it actually was a little flat, right? There's our before and after, right? Let's do the other one. Where is number 2 taken? He says. Okay, which one did I have as number 2? Sorry, that was a sneeze. I don't know what's going on. It's rainy outside or almost rainy and I'm getting allergies or something. Okay. Which 4 did I have? Let me find those again. So Rob wanted to know where number 2 was taken, and I believe it's Portugal. Oops. Let's have a look. Oh, Cuba. I should have known. That's Cuba. 2020. So it could have been Berco or somewhere. But yeah, Cuba makes sense. Okay, so now what I want to do is I could apply the same edits from the cactus shot onto these others, right? And I could choose sort of which things that I want to apply, right? So if I go copy, okay, it's going to give me all of the things that I modified. I don't want to copy the crop. I don't necessarily want to do the masking, okay? So, nor do I want to do the cloning, okay? So I'm going to copy everything except cropping erasing and the masking. Okay. Then I go to the next one. Let's just paste it. I have no idea what I'm going to get here. See, it lifted the shadows. And in this one, I actually wouldn't even do that. I would edit this one completely different, right? There's a lot more detail here and everywhere. Okay, so what worked on the other one doesn't work so much on this one. Okay, so not going to use that one. Reset. There we go. Let's try it on this one. I think it's going to be the same problem. It's going to lower the contrast too much. Let's see. Oh, see, look, it worked well on this one, except for the background. I find that this is brightened too much, so it's lifted the shadows too much, but that's easy to fix. We'll just reset our shadow slider, and other than that, it's actually done a pretty good job, right? The only thing I might do on this one is to add an edge vignette, which I have done already, so let's do that. Is that the moon in the background? That looks like the moon over there. Right, so that one has actually done a really good job. So in this case, right, look at the sky. It was really washed out. And just by doing the adaptive color, I think that's the one that's doing the really good job here. If I pick a different one, yeah, see, all the Fuji ones have a lot more contrast. So if you want to keep the drama, stay with your native camera profile and then just work with it. I don't mind this either, right? So I'm just going to do my shift double click here, like so, right? And I would do the same thing that I did on the cactus here, right? So I would do, I actually made myself a preset on masking the subject in the background. So all this does is it creates two masks and it doesn't do any edits on them, right? So it's created me a mask for the subject, right? And it's done a pretty good job of selecting him and the background. So I might need a little adjustment here because it's missing part of him, right? But what I wanted was the subject so that I can increase the texture, right? Look at this. When I zoom in a little bit here, right? Look at the texture, right? So texture is the thing that you want to use. Not so much not so much clarity, okay? Because it's adding to that contrast, but texture does a great job of working with the hard light that's already there, creating this texture, and it brings it out even more, okay? Now I could come back and make sure that I get his bottom part here. We could just add, and the easiest way to do that is just object. It should fill in the rest of him. It doesn't want to fill him in. I don't know why. It doesn't like that part. So I'll just use auto mask and I'll just paint him in over here. Right? I'm not so worried about his horn or his tusk. And then on this one, I want to subtract it. Okay, so I'm going to subtract because I want to get just the background, right? And I do have edge detect on. Okay, so it's kind of picking up, it's trying to find the edges of it, which will help up here if I try and do just his horn. I'm not too worried about it, right? Not too worried about just his horn. Oh, that's not too bad. There we go. Oh, and this part's here. So you want to make sure your mask gets the whole, because I'm going to do the opposite to the background. So now that we have the background, okay, I'm going to lower the highlights a little bit and lower the texture, right, and the clarity just a little bit. Okay, so we're basically simultaneously blurring the background a little bit and adding contrast, adding texture to him, okay? I could even darken the background a little bit. So if this pagoda in the background, you know, comes out too dark, I don't care about the shadows here, right? Because it's him that I want to bring out. So if the background goes dark, I don't care, right? And that's the thing that people tend to worry about is, oh, my shadows are clipping. It's okay. Let the shadows clip. You're dealing with a high contrast subject with hard lighting, okay? There's going to be some deep shadows, right? But this one here, allows you to do a really great job to bring him out, right? Now I'm also going to go to the next image here, which is the same guy, right? And I'm just going to click previous and see what it does. It's going to copy the mask over, which might do something weird. Look at that. Okay, pretty good, right? It's done everything I needed. And I could go in here and look at the mask and say, okay, I probably don't need this brush part because it painted some stuff in. Oh yeah, it does. Okay, let's see. That's pretty good, actually. Okay, so even though I copied and pasted and the mask was painted, right, it did a pretty good job. Let's try it on the next one too. Okay, this guy is going to be slightly different, and I don't know if the mask is going to be needed, right? And the image is a little overly bright, right? But I think the adaptive profile is what's doing the job here, right? So I don't know if the masks are... it's picking up this part in the background here, right? I might remove these masks and start over again and literally just do background instead. See, it's picking all of this up as the background, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It's going to focus more on his face, right? Like so. The other thing that I find that happens when we have hard lighting is that people tend to want to brighten the image so that the shadows are bright like this, so that the shadows are the correct exposure. And then what ends up happening is your highlights are too light, and then it's just sort of like flat. It's just kind of lifeless. Okay, so when you have an image like this, this is actually the exposure you want. Okay, so the highlight area, the bright areas, is where you want it to be, like your midtones here. Okay, so let the shadow fall, let it go dark. And in fact, I might even go darker on this one, right? I might even go a darker edge vignette, right? I might even get in here and really select this area and bring this highlight down, okay? Because this part here, I don't want it to be showing up so much. Or I could even crop it a little bit. Let's just tilt him a little bit to get rid of some of that, right? So I would do some work on this one here. Let's just do object select. Okay, so if I try and select this area, okay, it kind of did an okay job. I would go a little bit farther. Remember, bringing down the texture helps, okay? Yeah, it needs more. Needs to select this whole bottom part too. There we go. Okay, so there's my overlay. Oh, it's picked up a little bit of him. That's not bad. Okay, now I could also paint it into this area up here. Okay, so you can add to your mask at any time. Okay, so see what this one is doing? Right, is that bright spot in the background. Okay, so this one is another one that would do really, really well in black and white. I'm just going to crop even more. Yeah, I like him. I want him a little more space. I still feel like I want to really... There we go. Look at that. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm thinking. Right? And I might even come in and darken this edge even more. Right? Just a radial gradient. Because I really want to focus attention on his face. Because he's super interesting. Right? And if I do this one... There's not a lot of color anyways. Do this one in black and white. Okay, so make note of the original colors, right? So there's a little bit of blue and his eyes are sort of orange, right? Look at, right? If you're not sure, right, Lightroom's targeted tool, right? You can go over with the targeted tool. It's brightening his claws, which is cool, right? And blue, look at the blue, right? What else? I want to get in this color. So the blue and even purple. So this one makes a really great black and white, okay, because of the lighting and the contrast. He's super cool, I think. Good and tight. Thank you. Yes, that was That was a sneeze. Okay, so let's see my other images that we had from our set of 4. I should mark those. Where's the other one I was going to do? Cactus. Okay, so let's come back to our cactus. I still have it copied. So the settings that I copied from the first one that we did, the other cactus scene. Right? Now I've pasted it on here. So there's a bunch of things about this one because I've processed this image a few different times, a few different ways. This is drawing attention. So this cactus down here, remember I talked about the brightest thing? And I'm just going to crop it right out. Or mostly out. I might crop it mostly out and then just either do some cloning or probably just do a clone on this, to be honest. If I just use the remove tool, it usually does a pretty good job, right? Pretty good. That looks believable. One more. Right? See that? So easy. Easy peasy. Update the adaptive profile. And I'm going to change the adaptive profile again and see what happens if I use a color. You know, this was a Canon file, okay? So these are Canon profiles, okay? And I'm not really a fan of either of them. Oh, that one's better, okay? So neutral is better, right? So it was really, really red. It's also a little bit overexposed, okay? So remember, I copied and pasted, right? And I'm going to darken the whole thing. So remember what I said about trying to get the shadows to be the correct exposure. Let me come back on screen here because I gotta so don't make the shadows the correct exposure. You want the shadows to be shadows. Okay, so this is a better exposure. Okay, so all these little highlighted needles, I guess they are, right? And I'm going to lower the shadows. I'm not going to lift the shadows. I want them to be shadows, right? Like so. That's doing a nice job on the background up there, okay? Not sure why I had vibrance on, but I'll take that down. Now this one I've actually done in black and white as well, okay? Because for me, this is all about the texture. I would put a vignette on here as well. Right? And it looks like there's some dust spots and things I'd probably get rid of. Right? My Canon was notorious for dust spots. Okay, but let's see what this one looks like in black and white. And I want to take a couple of these to Luminar, right? Now, again, if we look at this upside down, right, your eye goes everywhere. So I really want to focus in on sort of this little flower bit in the middle here. So I'm going to do a radial gradient around the part that I want to bring attention to, right? And then invert it, okay? So there's my mask. Invert, so it's everything else, okay? Maybe up here like that, okay? Then I'm going to lower the highlights and exposure because I really want to bring the eye in to this part, okay? There we go, right? So notice how much black there is in this image. We're clipping a lot of it, and I don't care, okay? I don't care. I actually might crop in a little bit from the bottom. There we go. Right, so clipping is fine. Don't worry about your blacks clipping, especially on a black and white image, because it's going to give you that punch and contrast that you're looking for. So when you're working with hard light, expect to have deep shadows, right? Let's see. I want to go back to the building. Did we do the building? No, I want to go back to this building because the copy and paste did not work so well on this one, okay? Because it removed the shadows too much. Okay, so I'm going to do a couple of things. I want to make sure it's straight first, okay? So just do a quick crop. And auto straighten does a really good job of, like, it's, you always want to, like, straighten based on the middle, okay? And if it's doing any distortion, transform is the one you want to use. Okay, so I could do auto on this one, and it straightens sort of the perspectives on all sides, which does a good job here. Okay, so I'm really big on watching edges, and what I saw here was just this little bit of white over on the side right there. So I want to crop that out. Okay, so I moved it over a little bit, and I'm going to come in a little bit more so that the edge, there's no white bit there. Okay, so I'm really big on watching the corners and edges, and now I see there's like a little light thing up there, but that's okay. I'll probably get that taken care of when I add a vignette. So again, these are presets that I'm just applying, and all that does is adds a dark vignette, okay, like so. So I'm embracing and leaning into this added contrast. Okay, now let's go black and white before I do any of this stuff. Okay, let's just go right straight to black and white and look at that. Okay, huge contrast, love it. Okay, clipping a little bit on the shutters. Again, I'm not actually that concerned about it. Okay, if anything, I want more black still. Okay, look at that lovely contrast. The thing in the corner does bug me still. So I'm going to crop in a little bit. We'll just get rid of it. There we go. See, I'm always looking at these little, like, what's on the edge. Now that bugs me. Let's come in a little bit there. Okay, my other option is to clone it out. So, see what I'm saying? It's just this little thing on the edge here. And I don't know why it bugs me. It's like a texture something or other. And it's just bugging me, so I'm just going to get rid of it. That's pretty good, right? So images like this, when we have bright contrast, okay, so then I'm going to show you the opposite, okay, of what not to do. When you have something like this that's got this beautiful side light, okay, beautiful side light, creating this beautiful texture, Cuba, okay, we have lots of textures in Cuba. If I reset this and try and go a different direction with it, let's go to the adaptive profile. Okay, so it's trying to get rid of the shadows, right? There, that's what was up in the top corner here. Okay, so I'm not going to correct the verticals on this one. I'm just going to straighten it like that. Okay, because I don't want to crop in too much. I might come back and do that on the black and white. And let's go the opposite way. Let's say, okay, I want to control those highlights and I want to control the shadows. Okay, but look what happens. Okay, now we've lost the contrast. We've lost the texture, right? I can try and get it back with some of this stuff, right? And then it just starts to look like your eye is going all over the place, right? So remember what I said about looking at your image upside down, right? We can do that in both of these versions. Still doesn't feel straight. There we go. Right? We could do that in both versions, but look at this image, okay? It's gone the opposite direction that we went with the black and white. I'm going to turn off the lens correction here. Oops. Okay, so let's compare these side by side. Where are we? Okay, which one grabs more attention? The left, black and white, or the right, the color? Which one is more dramatic? Which one says Cuba to you? I will come back to Marsha's question about the masking and invert versus invert and duplicate. They are two different things for sure. But I'd like to know which one you prefer here, okay? Which one gives more texture? So not just the fact that it's black and white, because I could turn the other one into black and white if that's the... Actually, let's do that. Let me turn this one into black and white. Okay. Oops. Frustrating. Okay, here we go. Okay, let's just turn this one into black and white real quick, and then I'll come back here. No, it's backwards. Okay. So the left one is lots of contrast. Now they're both black and white, right? But which one has more drama? Which one is more effective? Which one is the more effective use of this hard lighting? Okay, do you see the difference editing makes? Okay, everybody's saying the left one. Okay, no surprise. Okay, so think about that when you're editing these images that have this high contrast. Lean into it. Don't get rid of it. Okay, Don't eliminate the shadows, because literally the shadows are what is creating the drama. And when you eliminate the shadows, you're eliminating the drama. Okay? We could literally take this another direction and keep going into ridiculousness here, right? So I could, like, if I go all the way with this, I mean, look what I end up getting. It looks ridiculous, right? So I'm adding contrast unnaturally. Okay? Look at this mess. Look at that mess. It's ridiculous. It is ridiculous. And then if I try and add a tone curve, right? Now we just have an HDR-ish mess. Right? So that's what I call a mess on the right. Right? And people create what they call a grunge image, and it looks like that. Okay? But when your shadows in some places are the same density, look at the shadows here and the highlight here. Right? They're the same density. That's not right. That's not right. Right? Look at here. This is a shadow. Right? This is in the sunlight. Why are they the same tone? Okay? Your eye is going to reject that. Right? Look at the difference here. Shadow is a shadow. It's dark. Here, this little archway is highlighted and it stands out, and the window stands out. Here, it's just a big mess. Right? Left, but can we keep the bottom corner to be lightened up? I wouldn't, Janet, because the reason being is, look at what happens when I lighten it up. I don't want the left corner lightened because it's not important, okay? It's not important to the scene for it to have brightness, right? And that's what I mean by don't be afraid of the shadows, right? If I do that, if I create a linear gradient here, and I'll show you, I'm going to answer your question, Marcia. Right? If I create a linear gradient here to match the shadow, and then I brighten it, okay? To what end? Okay? I don't need detail there. There's really nothing there that adds to the scene, okay? And in fact, you know, I could actually go the opposite way. I would even like just go black, right? And in fact, I wouldn't necessarily do this one, but I'm just going to add another linear gradient coming from this side. Right? And darken it even more. Okay? I'm literally leaning into and darkening those shadows even more. Right? One more linear gradient maybe up here just to get that top. I want to minimize this top part. There we go. Okay, so do you see what I mean by leaning into the shadows? Okay, without the shadows, you don't have the highlights. Okay, when you eliminate and you have something that looks like this, okay, can you see how that's a big mess? Okay, let me come back here and do the select and inverse. Okay, so let's say I want to highlight the archway. Okay, so I'm going to do a mask, and let me do a radial gradient. Okay, so I'm just going to select a radial gradient over this archway. Okay, so invert literally just gives me the opposite. Okay, so if I just click invert, it's not changing my edits, it's just giving me a different mask. Okay, see the mask up here? Okay. So on this one, I'm going to add a little bit of clarity and texture, okay? So just to punch up that archway a little bit. I might even brighten it, okay? Now, duplicate and invert will make a second mask. I'm going to sneeze again. I just sneezed, right? So now duplicate and invert is going to give me another mask, okay? Invert just inverted this one, but duplicate and invert makes a new mask the opposite. See that? Now I have the opposite, right? like this, and everything else is selected. So I could actually lower the highlights and the texture a little bit. Right? So between these two masks, what they're doing, let me move this out of the way here. There we go. What these guys are doing is bringing more attention to the archway, right? So this one, original one, inside the mask. This one, outside the radio, right? Because I made a second mask. So duplicate-and-invert adds a new mask, which is the opposite. Invert just inverts. Oh, my nose. Okay, let's come back here. So Rob says, you'd have to match the shadow at the top right if you do the bottom left. Yeah, exactly. David says the right is too bright. Oh, you mean this column over here by the archway? So I chose to bring attention to the archway, and I was mostly just demonstrating that for Janet. But yeah, I could back it off this column a little bit. Right? And I could still check to make sure, there's nothing clipping here. Okay, so there's nothing clipping on the white end, and having a monitor that's calibrated is another key, because if your monitor is set too bright, you're going to artificially darken your pictures. If your monitor is set too dark, you're going to brighten everything. So if you have the experience of sharing your images or posting them online and they look different than they look on your computer, it's due to a calibrated or uncalibrated screen, okay? And in order to do that, you really need to have a device, which I have on my screen here. I can't show it to you. Hang on, let me see if I can. It's attached to my computer monitor. So this thing right here, which is hanging over top of my other monitor, right? It's by Calibrate, right? We can put a link to that in the description area below. I'm not sure if you can find that on the chat or not, Rob, because you'll have to get a link to that. But you need a device like that to do a proper calibration, okay? You can't do it with just software. So if your monitor or your computer has a calibration thing, that's not the same as running a device that reads the brightness and the colors of your screen and gives you a profile, okay? So you really need to have a device like that. So I use one called Calibrate, and I have the Pro one, but there's another one that is less expensive. I think it's the 123, or you can go with a Spider Pro, but get the Spider Pro, and Spider is SPYDER. Okay. Where's my screen? There we go. Okay. Should we do another one? Are you guys learning something? Okay. Tell me, are you learning something? Because I'll keep going if you're learning stuff, even though I'm sniffling my head off here. Another scenario I wanted to show you was what happens when you have hard light and super contrast like this. Okay, so the sun is hitting this pagoda, and this is not, the most extreme example, but when you have a scene like this where it's high contrast, right, it may pay to do bracketing and HDR, right? Look at the light here, right? The sun is hitting this golden temple, and it's really cool, right? But the rest of the scene is not super bright. So I could lean into it and just go with the contrast, or I could do HDR. So I did bracket in order to do that. But I actually really like the dark image, right? Somewhere between that and that. Okay, so I bracketed to allow myself the option of merging HDR later, okay? I'm going to lower this just a bit. Okay, so I'm just going to darken it. So I want to go somewhere in between, right? Because I really like what's happening here, right? And I want to try and see if it picks up the sky, because the sky's got some really neat textures, right? It's not bad. Yeah, look, it did pick up the sky. So I'm going to darken the sky and lean into this contrast in the sky. Look at that, right? So then I can bring my exposure back up overall. Yeah, look at that. Okay, so instead of going HDR and bringing detail out everywhere, I'm embracing all of this in shadow. Okay, I'm embracing all of that. So I'm going to do my shift, double click. Ooh, it thinks the whites are... okay, so the building is clipping just a little bit. That's fine. So it wants to bring the whites down, and I'm overriding it. I'm saying, no, I want more white, and I want more black. So I'm overriding the automated option there. And with my vignette, I bring it down, like, let me show you what it's doing. Ideally, in Lightroom, I cannot reposition the mask. Okay, I can change the shape of it and the size, but I can't reposition it. So I'm just gonna do this. So I bring the feather all the way down to 0 and the amount down real low, so that it gives me, I can see the vignette better. So look at that. Okay, so for me, again, this is bugging me, this little space over here. I hate spaces on the corner. So I'm either going to clone it out and just make more tree happen there, or crop it out. Let's see what happens if I crop in just a little bit. Actually, that's not bad. So if I crop in just to get rid of that spot, I'm coming in from the bottom a little bit. That works. I don't mind that the tree goes off the page. And in fact, I might come up from the bottom even more. So I'm changing the aspect ratio, but I'm okay with that. So I'm always watching sort of for those little, see that? Little itty bitty bright spots on the edge of the picture, right? And that's what I try and get rid of. Not sure it did it. There we go. Okay, even like this, I would do a whole thing here and try and remove it or clone it out, right? Because I don't want these little white spots on the edges of my image. So again, that's part of contrast, right? And this needs to be updated. Sorry for the sniffling. Okay, so again, before and after. So leaning into, let's go with contrast, right? If I look at this image, look at the beautiful contrast, right? And the golden pagoda standing out is due to the light hitting it, but it's also because the rest of the image is dark, okay? So again, leaning into the shadows. Rob says he didn't see the little itty bitty spot. Okay, so he calls me like eagle eyes. So I have this eagle eyes to see things that other people don't. Let's see. Matt, learning lots. Awesome. Catherine, Janet is learning lots. Very interesting, Serge said. Kevin, I'm not sure what that icon. Oh, your brain's on fire. Okay, gotcha. David, learning lots too. Marcia says, I usually use a radial mask as my vignette. Ah, yes, you can do that too. Yep, absolutely. And the benefit of that is you can do other things with it too, right? I really like the reverse S-curve for contrast. Thanks, Lee. Out of sync issue again. Okay, hang on. Let me see if I can change that. Or I could just come off camera. How's that? I'll just try that and see if that's any better. If not, it can take me off the screen. I'm sniffly anyways. There. Now I'm off the screen. Okay. Let's see what else I wanted to show you. Okay, so backlit scenarios. We talked about the one with the girls on the street earlier. And as a side note, I'm actually leading a tour back to Japan this fall. So if you'd like to come with me to Japan and photograph some of these things that you're seeing here of my Japan issues, you can. So if you could please share a link to the Japan tour, Rob. Hey, Stephanie. Yeah, you'll be able to start it over again as soon as I'm done. And you won't miss a thing. So Japan tour, please, Rob. We've got, I think, 5 spots left. Something like that. Neil says, clarified a lot. Important to understand. Well done, as usual. Thanks, Neil. Appreciate it, as usual. Okay, so let's take a look at, again, another scenario where you might be doing some street photography. We ran into this anime festival in, where were we? I think this might have been Osaka. So we ran into this anime festival. If you can put it in the chat as well, please, Rob, besides the Japan tour, in the chat for the people who are here. And how are we doing with our thumbs up? We don't have thumbs up yet. We only got 28 people here, but only 10 thumbs up. So, excuse me. Okay, so let's take a look at this one. We could try again the adaptive color. All right, so in a situation like this, they're backlit. Okay, now notice if I look at the exposure, my background is clipping. In this situation, I did that on purpose, okay, because I wanted them to be correctly exposed. If I had exposed it like this to make sure that nothing was clipping, look what they look like, okay? So I'm not worried about the sky in this. I wanted to get them. So I purposely overexposed the background. And if I look at my metadata, let's just look at my EXIF data, okay? My exposure bias, I did put plus 0.3. So I did increase the exposure compensation a little bit, okay? Kevin says better, so I'm hoping that means the sync. Is that the sync is better? Sync is better? Okay, so in this one, to edit it, we can try the adaptive color and see what we get. Not bad, okay? It definitely has brought down the highlights, okay? And it changed the histogram, see? We don't have anything clipping now. Let me just do an undo, okay? So watch the histogram when I do that again. See the spike here, okay? I'm going to turn on the clipping warnings. And then when I go to the adaptive color, look at that. Okay, so it does do a lot of really good things, okay? Then if I use my mask, subject, and background mask again, or my preset, again, it doesn't apply any edits. It just makes the masks for me, okay? Now, oh yeah, my mask is over here. Get over here. Okay, so let's see what it's done. So it's done a really good job of selecting them as the subject, which is perfect. Right, now we have the background. It's kind of, missed his hair, or it's got his hair and her arm. So I would do a little work to pick that up, but I can just darken everything. Okay, now they're going to stand out. They're going to stand out a lot more. Okay, so I would do some subtract, auto mask. Right, and how I'm getting this mask to show up is just pressing O, which is for overlay, on my keyboard. Okay, so O is the keyboard shortcut. Rob, can you please share the keyboard shortcuts cheat sheet for Lightroom? And we have one for Luminar as well. And J is to get the clipping warnings to show up. And O is for the mask overlay to show up. Now notice it kind of picked up his leg here as well as part of the background. Okay. And I can choose to add this bag of theirs as well if I want. Okay. But I'm literally just concerned about them, okay? So look what this is doing. One mask, right, is darkening this bright background, and look at that, right? I can even go a step farther and just select the sky, right? But I don't want to go too far, okay? You don't want to do that because now they look lit up, and in doing so, okay, look at, I missed a spot in here, okay? So then I'm going to add to the background and get this spot in here, okay? Because it missed this spot, okay? And this spot. Okay, so I'm picking up sort of the stuff it's missed. Looks like a spot in here too. And I would zoom in closer, right? And of course, I've just gone way too far. But see how going too far with your edits actually helps you define your mask, okay? So I don't want to go too far. I don't want to make them look like they were, lit with a flash or anything. I'm concerned about straightening it because I'm going to lose too much of their heads, I think. Yeah, I'm losing his foot, okay? So I don't want to crop his foot off. So I'm actually going to leave the crop like that, because I don't want to lose his foot. And I don't mind that it's tilted because they're kind of, you know, they look like action figures. So I'm okay with it tilting a little bit. And then let's just add a little edge vignette. And there we go. Okay, so that's all I would do with this image, literally. Okay, I can still come back and check my blacks and my whites. Okay, so I'm doing the Alt trick here, which is the same as Shift click. And that's it. So all I do here is just control the background a little bit, right? Or I could actually go the opposite way and blow the background out and go with a high key image, okay? I also have them selected as the subject, so I could even brighten them a little bit more, okay? And add them a little bit of texture, okay? But again, you don't want to do this, okay? Because now they just look cut out, okay? So you have to be really careful when you're doing these kinds of things, right? If anything, I want to keep the shadows on them, okay? So they keep contrast. I might lighten his face a little bit and do that with another mask just individually. I'll just do a real select object. So I just get his head like that and just brighten him a little bit. Okay. So they do have the look of a little bit being cut out, but you have to be careful about going too far when you do this kind of edit. I'm probably going to crop, again, I'm seeing a bright spot on the edge here and people in the background. So I'm going to make my life easier and just crop some of those bits out. Right? I don't want to crop the bottom because of his foot, and this is their purse and whatnot here. Okay, so there we go. So that's an image. That's what I would do with an image like this. Okay. Yes, Luminar. Okay, so let me pick one of these, and I'll take it over to Luminar. Actually, let's do one with the monkeys, because this one is a super high contrast. One thing I didn't want to show you in Lightroom before we leave here is that there is a new thing in Lightroom. Did I do this one? There is a new thing in Lightroom that helps you get rid of reflections. So when you are shooting through a window, like I got some reflections here. I was up in a skyscraper to get the city shots. The new remove tool has a reflection remover that does a really great job. But one thing you want to be aware of when you use it is it has a preview mode. So when it comes up, it looks like the image is out of focus. If you go with the preview, right down here, see how the image looks blurry now? And it didn't even get the reflection, right? You can change the quality to best, but then it takes a really long time to render. Okay, so I'm not going to do that. And it didn't pick up the reflection. But if you've got some reflections like this, try that tool. Okay, let's go with one of our monkeys here. So I've got this little guy. They're super cute, right? These guys and these two. So I think I'm going to go with these two. They were doing, you know, some usual grooming on each other. They might be like a bonded pair. I like that he's holding his foot here, right? I'm thinking that this is the female. She was doing the grooming on him. Audio cutout. Oh, I might have muted myself. No, I'm not muted. So let me take this one into Luminar, okay? And I want to go with the raw file. So I'm going to do export. Now, if you are working straight in Luminar, you just open the file and edit, okay? So I'm going from Lightroom as a plugin, but I'm going using export source, okay? Which means I'm going to go into edit and I have develop raw, okay? If I do edit in Luminar Neo, right, I won't get the raw file, okay? So if you want to use Luminar as a plugin and you want to work from the raw file, edit in Luminar Neo is going to give you a TIFF if that's your setup from your preferences in Luminar and Lightroom. But if you want the raw file, export source file, okay? Normally, I would do my editing in Lightroom first and then take it to Luminar, but I want to do this one for complete Luminar workflow. Okay, so we have similar things here. Now, notice that I do have the Fuji profiles, but I had to install them custom, okay? And we don't have the benefit of, for example, the We don't have the benefit of the color adaptive profiles. Okay, so we're gonna have to do the work ourselves. But I'm gonna turn on the clipping. Okay, so same thing, and we've got clipping on the rocks. Okay, so the highlights. So I know I need to bring the highlights down, but I want to brighten the image overall. Okay, so I want to bring the monkeys out. I'm gonna sneeze again. Sorry, guys. This is crazy. Uh, Allergy pill coming up. Okay. I'm on screen, I'm off screen. Okay, so I want to brighten the image a little bit with this, which is going to brighten this rock, but we're going to do some local adjustments to control that. Okay, but when you're dealing with develop, you get develop raw only before you apply anything else. Okay, so I want to do as much here with develop raw as I can. So I'm going to lift the shadows a little bit. So I am lowering the contrast. Okay, and lower the highlights, but I don't want to do this. Okay, I need to keep those shadows because the monkeys are being lit and highlighted by that light, so I don't want to remove it. Okay, I am going to check off chromatic aberration. Okay, I do that on everything and give them a little bit of sharpness here. Color looks pretty good. Okay, I could probably warm it up just a little bit, so give them a little more brown in their fur. Okay. Right now, this is about all I will do with develop raw. In order to get back to develop where I can mask it, okay, this is the key. You have to apply something else first, okay? So I'm going to use structure, and I'm going to take it to a high degree just so you can see what it's doing, okay? And then I'm going to mask it to just the monkeys, okay? And there's a couple of different ways to do that. I could do it by painting it in. Yeah, see, that's not good, right? That's over the top. But I want to give them a bit more structure and texture in their fur, but I don't want to affect anything else. So I'm going to try object select here as well, right? And just add them in. So it analyzes the image and is looking for the edges of objects. Okay, so it's similar to Lightroom's object select, but here I get to just click on them. How easy is that, right? And the new feather softens the edge of the mask, okay? And shifts it bigger or smaller. So if I shift it and feather it, I fill in that little gap around there. Okay, so now I've got the mask how I want it. I'm going to go back and dial it down to something that looks good. Okay, so just giving the monkeys a little bit of texture. Okay, can you see that? If I zoom in. So before and after. Okay. Now, while I'm here, I'm going to come back and copy this mask because it's going to come into play on the next thing. So now you'll see that it says develop, not develop raw anymore. So once you've applied something on top of develop raw, your edits go up here, okay? Now you get develop, which means that I can come back in here, lower these highlights, right? And even darken it, the whole thing, and then use that mask that I just created, okay? So if I paste in the mask, it's on the monkeys. But just like in Lightroom, we have an invert option, which flips it to everything else, okay? Now I'm going to shift the edge the opposite way, right? So it's affecting, it's just kind of glowing around them, okay? So it's affecting everything except the monkeys, okay? Let me do a before and after. You see that? And if I turn on the clipping warnings, it's affecting and helping this rock, okay? Now I'm going to do one more iteration of develop, okay? So you can do develop as many times as you want, and I'm going to mask it to just this rock this time, okay? So I want just this rock, right? And I'm going to come back in, darken it, because I really don't want this rock taking so much attention, okay? Like so. Now I could also come back to structure and apply negative structure. Okay, you can see what's happening. It makes it blurry. once again, paste in the mask and invert it, right? And then I'm going to get it a little bit more around, give them a little more space, okay? And then obviously dial it back. So I go to extremes with these edits, right? So I can see where the mask is. See what that's doing? It's ever so slightly. Let me go a little farther. It's just removing the structure and crunchiness of the background. Watch these rocks here, okay? So this is really what it's affecting. Okay, so before, oops, it's processing. Okay, so watch the background. Rocks, okay? Like so. Okay, so let's take a look at the full before. See that? The rock takes all the attention. Now the rock is toned down, okay? I'm going to do a little crop here because once again, okay, this is what I see. I see this white bit at the top here, and I want to get rid of it. So I'm just going to come in a little bit once it gives me my crop handles. There we go. Let's go about like that. Maybe even more. I'm going to come all the way down. Just get rid of these black spots here. Getting a little closer to the monkeys. Wait for it to pop in. There we go. Right. Now I could do one more thing because I still have my mask copied. I could add a bunch of detail. Okay, so again, I'm going to go to extreme just to show you what it's doing because that's too much. But I want to paste in this mask that I did on the monkeys. Okay, so it's just on them. So I'm reusing this same mask over and over. And obviously that's too much. But I just want to give them a bit more detail in their fur. Okay, so again, when we look at the before and after on this tool, okay, so the eyeball here is the tool, right? See how it's picking up? Look at the fur. Look at the little paws. I was going to say hands. They look like hands, okay? It's detailing all this beautiful fur, okay? So they are detailed. Okay, so before, rock is too prominent. After, okay? So I haven't removed the light on the rock. I've just toned it way down, okay? And I have not even used a vignette yet, okay? So we could still use a vignette. When we look at our clipping, looks good, right? Now that I've got it sort of where I want it, I could actually come back and brighten it a little bit more, right? It starts to clip the fur a little bit, right? But I'm not super worried about the highlights, okay? So if I have a few highlights that clip, I think it's okay, right? Because it brightens them just a little bit, right? Now I am going to go do a vignette. And as I think, who was it? Janet that said they do a radial filter, gradient. So Luminar allows you to move your vignette around, okay? So I can resize it, make it rounder, and then put it around the monkeys, okay? So I can put the vignette like this. Okay, so I get it where I want it. Then I put the feather back up, always above 70 for the most part. Okay, and then just adjust my brightness. I feel like there's something happening on his back here. I would probably adjust my mask a little bit on the structure because I think like there's a blackness happening here, so I might remove some detail and structure off of his back. Okay, so if you find that you've got an issue, what you need to do is just backtrack and find it. Okay, so I've created myself an issue. Now I'm going to go back and find it. Okay, so if I go all the way back to structure, right, I'm just doing a before and after. So I'm just going to erase it from this part of his back. Okay. And then this part, let's see. Yeah, that's adding to it as well. So again, just do a quick erase. So I'm minimizing it. Oop, I painted. See, I painted instead of erasing. Okay, so I don't want that contrast happening there. So I'm going step by step for each. That's the rock. That's the background. So I can actually just do it a little bit in here. So I'm just trying to feather this a little bit. And so it doesn't give me this hard outline. Okay, so I'm getting this hard outline around the edge here. And I want to minimize that. Okay. So I'm going back and just adjusting each mask. There we go. Okay. So there is our monkeys. I still think I've got a little too much saturation or a little too much crunchiness on them. Probably lower it a little bit. Or what I can do is use one of my favorite tools, which is Mystical, and just kind of soften it a little bit. So Mystical gives this sort of neat glow, okay, like this. Or actually, Glow. Okay, so Glow has one called Glow, ironically, where anything that's light glows. Okay, so it actually helps their fur. See how the rock is glowing? Okay, so it actually helps their fur glow a little bit. Okay, I don't necessarily want more contrast, so let's do Mystical and Glow. Okay, so just giving their fur a little bit of a soft glow, taking off that edge. Right? Now when I apply this, it is going to come back into Lightroom, I believe as a TIFF, because that's what my Lightroom preferences are set to. But if you're editing in Luminar directly, you're just going to export this. Okay, you're done. But how cute are these little guys? Okay. Coming up on 2 hours. I think I'm hitting my limit here for sneezing. But let me just come back on the screen here. When we get back into Lightroom, here we go. Here comes the image. Now I could do something similar in Lightroom, but Lightroom does not have... Where's my monkeys? There they are. Lightroom does not have the glow and the mystical that I used on them. But let's just compare the before and after. Okay. So before is on the left and after is on the right. So I've warmed them up and controlled the contrast, particularly this rock. Okay. So the rock was a huge issue because of the brightness. Now when you look at the monkeys, right, they stand out more than the rock. So again, the hard lighting creates the great detail and texture on their fur, but it also created a problem because this rock was highlighted. Okay, so everything I did to edit this was to minimize the rock and bring out the monkeys. Right? That is Luminar. I just edited that monkey shot completely in Luminar. So I don't know if you were not paying attention, but I just completely did that in Luminar. Questions? Any questions? Everything that I've done today, I did obviously mostly in Lightroom, but all of the same things can be done in Luminar, as I've just demonstrated with the monkeys. Okay, so you can mask, you can control the contrast, and you have some additional tools like Mystical and Glow that I applied sort of as my finishing. So a lot of the time, you know, what I will do is I will do my basic edits in Lightroom, and then I will come back and finish it in Luminar. Okay, so for example, this one of the girl, right? I might want to give that one a bit of a glow. My nose is running again. Okay, so I can finish this one in Luminar. Okay, so what I did before, where I did the raw file, I'm going to do the opposite. Now I'm going to do edit in Luminar, a copy of the Lightroom adjustment. So it's going to take this stage. Okay, so it's not going to take the raw file. It's going to take where I'm at now into Luminar. Thanks, Marcia. Yeah, allergies are fun, aren't they? So I'm just going to finish this one in Luminar. Okay, so it's going to come in. And all I'm going to do is apply one of those glows. Okay, so again, I'm going to try glow. And my personal favorite is Orton effect. I love what it does. Okay, it always brightens things. So I find that no matter what you do with Orton effect, you got to adjust the brightness. So it's kind of affecting this area more than I wanted to. And I don't want to add contrast. Okay, so I always kind of do the before and after to try and get the brightness back the same. Okay, so that's Orton effect. Okay, not sure about that one yet. I'm just gonna dial it down for now. We can always come back to it. Sometimes mystical, yeah, see, mystical works better in this one because it's not increasing this. Okay, and notice I can also pump the shadows up a little bit on this one, so I can give this a little bit of a glow. Okay. And just kind of dial it down a little bit. Another one that I really like in Luminar for finishing of things like this is adding a LUT. Okay, so a LUT or a lookup table is not something you can do in Lightroom either. You'd have to go to Photoshop for this. So if I want to give this like a 70s look, you know, like a street grunge, I'm just going to go into some of these ones here. Okay, so look at that. We get a faded out kind of look, right? Ooh, that's kind of neat too. It brings out the pink. Let's see. That's kind of neat. I'm looking for like a 70s greenish. There we go. It's adding contrast though. I don't want more contrast. Finding the right one, that's not bad. Finding the right LUT can be tricky, right? So that's kind of neat. Right? So it kind of lowers the contrast and gives us that old 70s look, right? So I like a LUT to finish, right? Finding the right one can take some time. You know, I find that I have to go through several, but I love the fact that it shows a preview. If you're doing this in Photoshop, it does not. It does not give you a preview, which is super annoying, actually. Right? So you literally have to apply it and then change it. Like you have to apply each one that you want to try. This is yellow. Ooh, let's try street. That one's kind of cool. Right? More contrast, lean into it. Right? Ooh, I like that one. Yeah, I like that one. Let's go with this one. Let's go with that one. Okay, so I have the amount dialed up quite strong because I really want to see what this LUT does. Okay. And is it darkening a little bit? It might be darkening just a little bit. So I could come back in here and just lighten it a bit, right? Like so. And I still feel like now this part of the image has gone too bright. So I can either fix it in here, right? Or, oops. Or go back to Lightroom and fix it, okay? So anything I do here is baked in, so just keep that in mind. So if you want to change it later, take it back and do that in Lightroom. But this is what I'm getting from Luminar. So I'm just applying a LUT and a little bit of a glow, okay? Yeah, I do like the mystical better, so I'm gonna go even higher. Yeah, I like it. Right, so I'll bring back a different version. Okay, I could also do a black and white in there as well. Now we're talking about Wanderlust. I looked away for a second. So there is my Luminar edit. Okay, so I love Luminar for, why do I have 2 copies of this? I don't remember. Oh, because I edited that. Interesting. Okay. Let's just compare those two. Okay, so there's my Lightroom edit on the left and the Luminar edit on the right. So it just gives it a bit of a color grading or style. Okay, and that's something that I actually did an entire video on. Rob, could you please share the other live on color grading? Because that's one that I did a while ago that I think people will really like. Right, it's really picking up a style. And if you're doing like hard light images and practicing working on hard light, if you are in our if you are in our DPM community, okay, that is your challenge for this month, which is working with hard light. So I encourage everybody to come and join our community. We have a monthly challenge with a prize. Last month we had Linton, who won a $75 credit at our store. So literally you can pay for your community membership by entering the challenge and winning, right? We only had 18 entries last time, so you got a really good chance of winning if you put your best effort forward. And this has should have given you some really good tips on how to use hard light for that challenge. So I expect an entry, Kevin. What is the practical difference between a preset and a LUT? Okay, so a preset applies a predetermined set of edits. Okay, so for example, if I'll just take a different one of these images here. Okay, or let's do this one. Okay, so if I apply a preset, for example, black and white high contrast portrait. Okay, so this preset has applied a bunch of different things. Wait for it to apply. Versus a LUT applies just one thing. Okay, so when I close this, Lightroom gives us an indicator of which tools have been applied because this thing is white now. Okay, so as opposed to the eyeball being gray, it's now white. So this has applied effects or a vignette, lens corrections, detail and sharpening, the black and white tool, and basic sliders. Okay, so it's applied something here, black and white. Okay, so that's a preset. Okay, versus I cannot do a LUT here in Lightroom. I have to go to Luminar first of all, and a LUT is only affecting the color toning or the color grading. Okay, it is a singular thing. Okay, a preset does not cancel out in Lightroom, but it does in Luminar. If you apply a preset in Luminar, then it cancels everything out. Yes. So, for example, I'm just going to crop this because I don't like this background here. I want to keep the flowers. Okay, so for example, if I bring this back to 0, okay, and take this one directly into Luminar again as the raw file, okay, I'm going to get two options. I can apply a preset or go and look for a preset and it will cancel the edits. Okay, so for example, if I go, let's do a LUT first, okay, so oh, it didn't do my crop. Of course, because I did the raw file. Of course it didn't. Right, so let's just do the same crop here. There we go. Okay, so now let's do a LUT first again. And I always turn up the amount to like 50 because then I can see the LUT better. Okay, so if I pick something, let's again, one of these sort of faded. I want a faded look. Let's see. Is there a faded one? I think there's probably something in here. Okay, so let's just do one of these. Cool winter. Let's do this one. Okay, so it's kind of lowering the color. You can see what it's doing, okay? So it's giving me sort of a high key look, okay? But if I go back to the presets, okay, so the only thing it is applied here is one tool. I've just applied mood, nothing else, okay? If I go back to the presets, okay, it's going to give me some suggestions. Let's just see. Okay, so it's suggesting this set of presets for this image, okay? And then once they load, I can hover over it and it will show me, it'll show me a preview. It's taking forever to load. Come on. Maybe I'll just go to my favorites. Okay, so these are some of my presets that I created in Luminar. And if I apply them, okay, you could see that the look becomes very different, right? Waiting for them to load. One I'm looking for is sort of this faded color look. Kevin says, why do you think I'm here? There, okay, faded color. Okay, it's giving me a really bizarre look, but we're getting this sort of green, faded out. This one gives me a lot of grunge with some grain. So I'm going to go with this one because I want to show you what happens. So when I apply a preset, okay, it's giving me a different look, okay? However, how it works is very different than just applying a LUT. Just as a question, Matt, is your name changed, Matt? You had a different name before. Okay, so just what software are you using, MattTube? What software are you using? So now look what happened in my edits panel. Okay, so before I had just mood. Now I have all of these things applied. Okay, so it's applied structure, details, vignette, color, toning, matte, film grain, and a vignette. So all of those things applied with the preset, and notice mood is gone. So exactly what Kevin said is anything that I applied before the preset is now erased and the preset has applied over top of it. Okay. So very different scenario with a preset than a LUT. Okay. I can apply a LUT on top of this. Okay. But if I go back and choose a different preset, I will get a completely different look for the image. I'm looking for glamour portrait to load here. Come on, glamour portrait. Matt says Lightroom and now learning Luminar. Okay, so in Lightroom, again, you don't have the ability to apply a LUT. That's not something that Lightroom can do. You'd have to go to Photoshop and apply it typically as an adjustment layer, right? Photoshop doesn't have presets as actions, but Lightroom does have presets. Okay, so Lightroom presets work a little bit differently because you can choose which tools to apply in your preset. And I honestly wish that Luminar would give us that option. Okay, I don't know why it's not letting me load these presets here. But Luminar writes over everything with a preset. Okay, so I'm trying to get it to load this glamour preset and apply it because it's going to look very different. And then you'll see the edits that are applied are now changed again. Okay, so where there was film grain and so on with the glamour portrait that is not applying, okay, now you see a very different look. Okay, so very different tools have once again been applied. So now we have skin smoothing and portrait tools as well as glow, okay, being applied here. Actually does a nice job on them, doesn't it? Okay. So it's even done some bokeh in the background, which I will actually remove because I like the flowers, right? These tools have been updated with new things, which is why it's telling me that those aren't working, okay? And I would probably go in and just brighten them a little bit as well. Okay, so playing with a preset in Luminar erases everything else you've done prior to that. Okay, so you have to be careful with a preset. I'm just going to hopefully apply this. All right, so coming back here, we'll wait for this to come in. But coming back here, just to kind of summarize, I want to wrap up here. Now my nose is actually not running, which is great. So maybe I've sneezed it all out. Summarize working with hard light. So hard light is going to give you some challenges, especially when you're photographing people like this, because you're going to get a lot of shadows on faces potentially. But knowing how to work with it and what subjects work best, okay, gives you an advantage. Okay, so when you're out during the day and you're photographing and the light is bright and intense and hard, right? Just pick and choose your subjects. Be more selective, shall we say, with your subject, right? Okay, so there's our TIFF that came in from, oops. So that's the original. That's what came in from Luminar, right? And I could go from there. Okay, so that gave me a nice edit, actually. It was actually a pretty good edit. So when we look at the original, okay, super high contrast, just gave them softening on their faces. Right? I would still go a little bit more. But you get the idea between a LUT and a preset, I hope. How might someone learn about soft light? Well, I'm glad you asked, Rob, because later this month we have another session similar to this, and we're going to be talking about soft light. And it is June 28th. So normally we do it on the first and the third Sundays of the month, but I have a prior engagement that week on the 21st. So the next one is the 28th, and we're going to be talking about soft light. So great question. Thank you for that question, Rob. And I hope for you today that you've picked up a lot of tips working with hard light. Come back again at the end of the month, and we're going to have some tips and examples for working with soft light, which is the exact opposite when you have no contrast. Then what do? How do you edit your images to give them more punch? What subjects work with soft light? So stay tuned. Come back in 3 weeks, not 2 weeks, and we'll do it all over again with soft light. Thanks for joining in. Please give this video a thumbs up and share it on your social media challenge channels so that other people can see this video. If you enjoyed it, share it with the world and your friends. Take care, everyone. Have a good weekend. And for those of us with the sniffles, I wish you less sniffles today. Take care.